All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Pillar One Advisory Committee meeting for September. Today, we are going to introduce our Pillar Committee members. We're going to welcome our new Pillar Committee member and also a new member of the AIB team. And then we will get into committee feedback and highlights. And also, we have a full agenda of robust speakers that will present on our topic of the month. All right. So I will begin. I'm going to first begin by welcoming our new member to the advisory committee. And so please help me welcome Dr. Jennifer to the Pillar One Advisory Committee. And at this time, I'm going to let her come off mute so she can introduce herself and tell us about her connection to Pillar One and the blueprint.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Lisa, and everybody for the welcome. I'm Jennifer Mata McMahon. I'm an associate professor of early childhood education at UMBC. There, I also direct the Sherman Center for Early Learning in Urban Communities, which is a program that works closely with partner schools in Baltimore City to support teachers, early childhood teachers, instruction, and in the hopes that we're impacting learning outcomes for the students. I'm an early childhood educator and I'm an early childhood teacher educator. And I'm been in Maryland since 2018. I'm originally from Caracas, Venezuela, so I've taught early childhood there as well as in the US. And my training is from New York. So I've worked in New York, in Chicago, in Venezuela, and now in Maryland. As I said, UMBC works closely in a teacher preparation program with Baltimore City, but also the adjacent counties. And the university itself is in Baltimore County. So we're very close to those schools. Our students seeking certification for early childhood, the first 2 semesters are placed in early field internship sites. So they go to private early childhood centers and get their field experience hours there. And then for the following 2 semesters, they go into public schools, pre-KK, first, second, third grade, and get that experience there for accreditation or for certification. But thank you. I'm excited to be here and working with all of you.
All right. That's wonderful. So yes, we welcome you to the Pillar One Advisory Committee. And so now we're going to expressly say thank you to our outgoing Pillar One member, Jacob Bennett, for his service and commitment to the blueprint and his value partnership on the Pillar One Advisory Committee. And with that, we're going to now pass it to the remaining committee members to introduce themselves. And so I'm going to start with Chair Ruby Daniels, and introduce yourself and tell us about your connection to Pillar One and the blueprint. You're on mute, Ruby.
Shall we welcome Arsha
We
from the
will
AIB?
after this.
After this,
Yep.
okay. Yeah. I'm Chair Ruby Daniels, and I am a family childcare provider in Howard County. What I bring to the Pillar One is that I'm also a pre-K expansion grantee. So I live what Pillar One is. I am also the president of the Maryland State Family Childcare Association, representing over 4,000 family childcare providers in Howard County. And I'm also a consumer state member for the residential certification for residential program professionals, which is the home. I'm also with the OCC Advisory Council and I wear a lot of hats. So I'm well connected with the childcare community, and I'm here representing the private providers in the Pillar One space. Shall I pass it on to somebody?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll pass it on to Dr. Ray.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Rainier Miller. I am the managing partner of the Consortium of Accomplished Educators, coaching and consulting for educators and other professionals. I am connected to Pillar One through work. I am a certified early childhood educator. I have taught early childhood for about 16 years before moving on to teaching teachers and supporting teacher candidates who went through National Board certification. I am National Board certified twice in early childhood education, and I think I have about 5 more years to go before I have to renew that. Which means that I'm connected to not only Pillar One, but also to the high quality, effective certification of National Board that we are supporting all of our educators as they go through. And I'm just really excited to really see a pathway to the kind of early childhood education that our students deserve come to fruition. As an early childhood educator, we've always wanted the things that the blueprint is asking us to do. And so I'm excited to be a part of that with you guys. And I will pass it to Sakshi.
Hi, my name is Sakshi, and I'm a junior at Long Beach High School in Howard County, Maryland. My connection to Pillar One is that I just bring the student perspective and incoming workforce perspective. So the reason I'm here is just to expand my own knowledge about early childhood education. And this is my second year. And honestly, I've learned so much that I can take back with me towards my school, towards the county, and also just preparing for my own future. Like, I've definitely seen a lot of opportunities, like classes I would take or like college pathways for educators that I never would have thought about before. And it's also just opened my eyes about like issues faced by Maryland educators, students, and families. And I hope one day in the future, maybe I'll make it back to AIB and help with policy on a deeper level. So yeah, I'm just really glad to be here and have a seat at the table, and I'm excited for this.
If that is not an answer worthy of hand claps, thank you, Sakshi, as our student member. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Gina next.
Hi, everyone. I am Gina Hoover. I am the early learning lead teacher in Washington County Public Schools. So part of my job is to help coach our pre-K teachers. I visit all of our pre-K classrooms in our county, and I work directly with our coordinator for early learning. So, I get to dive into our personal blueprint plan here in Washington County Public Schools a lot. And so I'm just excited to be part of the Pillar One committee. I taught pre-K and kindergarten prior to this and started 2 pre-Ks when we started to expand. I started one at one school and then moved to another school and started another one. So, my passion is early learning, and I always say I don't ever want to go above kindergarten because it's just not for me. So, I'm just excited to be here and to continue the work of Pillar One. I've been on the committee since it started, and I'm just glad to be able to continue it and to continue to grow the blueprint. So I'm happy to be here, and I'll pass it to Linda.
Thank you. I'm Linda Gronberg Quinn. I'm the Department Chair of Teacher Education at the Community College of Baltimore County, which kind of gives you how I'm connected in here. But much like the rest of you have discussed, ever since an undergrad, I've been in early childhood education. That was my undergrad degree. And I've either I was a director of centers. I worked in centers. I taught kindergarten and first grade. And I've had the joy of preparing early childhood educators for the past, oh my gosh, 24 years. And it's so exciting to me. I had my Foundations of Education class today, and most of those students are freshly out of high school, and they're so excited about teaching. And the majority of those students are looking to teach early childhood education because they realize the importance. They get it. They get it. Something else to mention, UMBC made me think about it, is that one of the things we do at CCBC that we're really excited about is that we prepare people who are going into a K-12 classroom. We prepare people going into childcare centers. You don't have to get a degree in order to do this. You don't have to do it for credit. We work with Con Ed. We work with people with various pathways to get to being teachers. Bottom line is, let's get them into the classroom. So with that, I will pass it on to Christina.
There's two Christinas.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Christina Lopez.
Oh, wait 1 second. Thank you, Linda. Because these are our special invited guests.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I am
It's okay.
so sorry.
It's all right.
Tell me who I'm
So-
passing it to.
You're gonna pass it back to me.
Okie dokie. Will do so. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Because I'm going to take this time to introduce a new member of the AIB team. We are very lucky to have our team is in expansion, and we are very lucky to have our comms director, our communications and outreach director, and I'm going to introduce her. Her name is Arshia Sethi Snowden, and she is going to come on and say a few words.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all virtually and just sense the energy that you all have around early childhood education is incredible. I am Arshia Sethi Snowden. I'm our new outreach and communications director at the AIB. I come to the AIB after starting my career as a middle school teacher in Baltimore City. So Gina, I did go past kindergarten, but I really enjoyed working with middle schoolers. I then went on to work in partnerships and program management and outreach in a few different Baltimore City nonprofits until finding my way to the AIB. I started in mid-July, and as I've been starting my role here, I realized like how much I want to learn and also utilize the amazing people we have on advisory committees. So I wanted to just introduce myself, but also let you all know that I may be reaching out in the future to have you all help me with some either educational materials on the pillars or some highlights, and really just elevating the work that's happening on the ground with blueprint implementation, especially around pre-K and early childhood education. So just wanted to introduce myself, letting you all know that I'll probably be back in future meetings or reach out in some way to get your input and feedback on some different materials. So thank you all for inviting me in, and just excited to hear from all the speakers that you have today and all the work that you all are doing.
Thank you. All right. So yes, and we welcome Arshia and we welcome Dr. Jennifer. Okay, now to get into a little bit of housekeeping for the committee. Upon formation of the advisory committees, the organization and setup of the committees was determined by each advisory committee. The committee is responsible for creating the meeting agenda by selecting discussion topics around Pillar 1 and other topics relating to the blueprint implementation that the committee believes would be beneficial for exploration, and also inviting guest speakers like we have tonight to our meetings. We ask that a conversation is held annually to discuss leadership roles to allow the committee to engage in a conversation about rotating roles. Doesn't have to be decided tonight. There's no requirement to rotate. We just ask that a conversation among members about the leadership opportunities is had. So if anyone wants to email or contact me, later on offline to share their interest in a leadership role. They are free to do so. And secondly, we need to address that the Pillar One committee meetings will occur on the first Thursday of the month at 4:30 p.m. as agreed upon by the total committee. And there are 2 dates using that calendar metric that the committee should consider changing because of holidays. So the first one is January 2nd, and that is the first day back on site for I believe the majority of educators and parents and so forth. And that means that you would have to submit an agenda and work on the other areas of the committee the week of Christmas. We don't want to do that. And so we could move the meeting to January 9th. And
Yeah, Lisa, like in
Yes.
the past, the committee has decided like in August because a lot of the committee members were on vacation.
Okay.
We skipped
You
that
want to skip
month.
January?
So that might be a good time for us to, just relax over the holidays.
Okay.
If that's okay with the committee.
Okay.
Oh, and also
Thank you, Rachel.
Rachel said, October
Yes.
3rd is Rosh Hashanah, so we have to kind of,
Change that one too.
yeah. mhm.
Okay, so first, I just need agreement that you all are fine with canceling the January meeting. All right. Okay. I'll make note of that. And then let's look at October. Or you can have the meeting on October 10th.
Is that the second Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. Is the committee okay with the second Thursday? Okay.
I
Okay.
won't be able to attend that day, but if you guys want to go ahead, just let me know what I need to do and I'll just watch the live stream after.
Okay.
Thank you, Sakshi. And then the last meeting is on July 3rd. And it would be changed to July 10th.
July 10th is
The second
Better.
Thursday.
second
Yeah.
Thursday. Okay.
Mhm.
That will work.
All in favor? Okay,
Okay.
good. All right. Okay, I have one more piece and then you won't hear from me. It's going to be all on the committee members and our wonderful guests for this evening. Here's some Pillar One updates. The pre-K MOU for participation in publicly funded pre-K is underway with a deadline of September 30th. And MSDE has also solicited and received feedback on the ongoing barriers to participation by private providers, and they are planning for targeted technical assistance sessions. They have also clarified who is eligible for funding at the tier levels. The MSC has provided information under the blueprint on income eligibility and funding for pre-K students based on the system of tiers. And then lastly, our legislative update. The House Bill 1441 successfully passed and is now effective in the law. And it made numerous changes related to publicly funded pre-K programs, including adjusting staff credentials, altering slot allocations for private providers, requiring agreements between local boards and relevant agencies, authorizing applications for state funding for lease space, introducing support initiatives, establishing a career ladder for private pre-K providers, establishing provider hubs, and extending funding timelines for grant programs. Okay. And now I'm going to hand it over to Chair Ruby.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Appreciate your introduction and the update on the implementation. I just have a question about the 1.12B, the sliding scale for 4-year-old for the income greater than 300% of the federal poverty level, but less than the 600%. Is that already enforced? Because I'm seeing that it starts July 1st, 2024.
Yes, it started July 1st, 2024.
Okay, so
Correct.
the families are the ones that's considered tier 2, right?
Yes.
Tier 2. Okay, and they would have a sliding scale.
I'm trying to give you the correct information. Hold on. I just had it up. Yes, the families would be on the sliding scale.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so thank you so much, Lisa.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Arsha. We're looking forward to working with you, in order to inform the public about the blueprint and get all the marketing and the communication out. We have some amazing team here that we can actually utilize in
Definitely.
marketing the blueprint. Yeah, thank
Yes.
you.
Of course, I'm excited as well.
Okay. So today's topic is enhancing special education services, which is actually, yesterday's topic in the AIB was the special education implementation work group. So it kind of ties into that, leveraging resources and overcoming challenges. So we have a quick feedback or summary of last meeting. We didn't have one in August because a lot of us were on vacation. But our last meeting, July 11th, we had Maylene Mejia Cardenas, Beverly Coleman, we have Akima Rogers, Mark Nash, and then we have Ricardo Neal attend the meeting. And Gina can give a quick update on that meeting, and then we can move forward to our guest speakers for tonight. Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, I'll talk quick. Basically, last meeting was about workforce resources. So we heard from the organization We Will All Rise, and they were talking about their I Can Teach Summer Institute. We also heard from Montgomery County Community College about their different pathways that they have regarding early childhood education and the Early Care Education Initiative, which is a collaboration between Montgomery County Community College and Montgomery County Public Schools. And we heard from Trio Education Opportunity Center about their Fresh Start program that assisted adults with different opportunities for post-secondary education, such as loan forgiveness programs. And it was the Fresh Start program is a temporary program from the Department of Ed that offers special benefits for borrowers who defaulted from federal student loans. So she talked a lot about how to help people with that situation. And then we heard about dual enrollment at Montgomery County Community College. And then lastly, the AIB just provided some updates about the LEA's plans being submitted, and that feedback was being given, and also that they had 2 new hires. So that was kind of the quick synopsis of the last meeting. And I will turn it back over to Ruby.
Okay, thank you, Gina. We're going to start with our first guest speaker, and I'd like to welcome Rachel London. She is the Executive Director of the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council. Welcome, Rachel. I'm looking forward to information about the special needs or special education.
Great. Thank you, Ruby, and thank you all for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. It's good to see so many of my colleagues that I work with so often. Before I start, I just have to take one moment of personal privilege and say that I'm a Long Reach mom. So it is nice to see the representation here. So the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council, or the Council for short, we work to create change to make it possible for people with developmental disabilities to live the lives they want with the support they need. It is that simple. We do our work in 2 very, very big ways. A lot of advocacy, which is how I have seen so many of you. But we are also the only grant funding organization in Maryland that provides grants solely to improve the lives of people with developmental disabilities. We do that across the lifespan. We do that based on priorities that my council or board creates under a 5-year state plan. We are currently ending year 3 of our 5-year state plan, but I've been with the council for 16 years, and early childhood education has always been a priority, and in fact has been my focus since joining the council 16 years ago. I'm going to give you a little snapshot, and then I am happy to provide any additional information down the road. But we don't know how many children with developmental delays and disabilities there are in Maryland. We can make a lot of estimates. What we do know is that the State Department of Education is serving about 11,000 currently at any given time, serving about 11,000 children birth to 5 who are getting early intervention services. They're getting them in a variety of places, which is one of the issues that I, of course, want to raise with this committee. 21% of them are in a separate class, meaning they are only with people with disabilities. And only 39% are in a regular early childhood class at least 10 hours a week. So again, while this is only a snapshot of the kids with developmental delays and disabilities, I think we will see as I go on, the issues can kind of be compounded for the ones that we don't even know about or who are not receiving early intervention services, right? So the result of a variety of the things I'm going to tell you is what we just saw in the release of the new kindergarten readiness assessment report, which was only 18% of children with disabilities were ready for kindergarten, compared to 47% of their peers without disabilities. That gap grew a little bit since last year. And our advocacy and our research and all of the things we've always done has shown that a lot of that is related to where the children are receiving services and where they are spending most of their day. So the IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, requires young kids with disabilities to receive services in their natural environment, which we know for most kids is an early care and education setting, right? Childcare, pre-K, whatever it is. And the blueprint has done a lot of good work in that area, particularly around early intervention services in the Maryland Infants and Toddlers program and the increased funding. More kids are getting services. They are not getting service. More kids are not necessarily getting services in the child care center or the early care and education setting down the street where their peers or their brothers and sisters without disabilities are getting. I've been working with the Blueprint since its inception with the Commission on Innovation. So a lot of this is not new. The council really prioritized meaningful access for kids with disabilities in 2012 when we released a report that found 72% of families of kids with disabilities had trouble finding, getting, or keeping childcare. We made 15 recommendations at the time, and over the course of many years, they were implemented in a variety of different ways. We funded a lot of training development around inclusive practices, did a lot of advocacy and changed policies and laws and practices. I always like to say I get to advocate to change hard things, but then I get to fund the way to do it too. So it is a good place to be in. Unfortunately, more recently, we've been seeing a backslide in the number of families who are having trouble getting and keeping childcare for their kids with disabilities. But it's not all bad news. I think that there are a couple of things on the horizon or ways that we can really help those families. I want to focus first on the Child Care Scholarship Program. So there is in regulation a special disability rate, which provides up to 15% or more if the state approves it for one-time or ongoing accommodations for children with disabilities. Child care provider and the family has to apply for it, but if they apply for it and show that the child has a disability, by regulation, it says that provider can get 15% more than the rate. Unfortunately, as far as we know, it is not being used. It may be, I think there are a variety of reasons. I think a lot of people don't know about it. And I think we are primed for opportunity for outreach and communication to families and providers specifically about this. Because sometimes it is easy, right? Sometimes it is just something small that the child needs. Not always, but sometimes. And that 15% more could pay for that one thing. I just also want to raise that I'm currently doing some research. Some other states have been able to figure out ways for child care centers specifically to bill Medicaid for certain services for children with disabilities, which would provide a lot of money for additional accommodations, mostly in other states used for staffing. And we're beginning our research, but as we do, I'm happy to share it with the AIB, with this advisory group, and of course with MSDE. The second thing is the pre-K expansion for the Blueprint. We did a lot of work over the years. The Blueprint says children with disabilities are a priority regardless of income, but we have a funding issue, right? We have a fiscal problem in the state. I know that we are very realistic, but as a result, children with disabilities are not included in Tier 1. Even though the law specifically says they are priority regardless of income. And so the result is even if a local jurisdiction makes them a priority, it is possible they will not get increased funding for that child with a disability. And then ultimately, a lot of this, what we've learned over the years, and you may hear from my colleagues after me, but training and technical assistance always helps, right? We have required now as a state, all childcare providers, early care and education educators receive a training about the ADA and inclusive practices, but it really is a 101 course, right? And that next step training coupled with TA or coaching, whatever we want to call it, about inclusive practices, or that would provide insight about specific kids with disabilities that a provider may be serving is really critical. And these trainings do exist in little pockets, but of course, when you want to couple them with the technical assistance and coaching that's really needed to make them effective, it is costly. So those are all of those coupled together, I think is really what we've seen is the result that more families are struggling to find and keep early care and education for their young children with disabilities.
Oh, thank you so much.
Ruby.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Next, we have Christina Lopez. She's the president of the Maryland Association for the Education of Young Children. And she is also a parent of a special needs child. So we'd like to hear a perspective from a parent and see how that is working with them. So welcome, Christina.
Hi, Ruby. Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you to all of you for your work to really set a strong foundation here in Pillar 1 and Early Ed. I too, like Rachel, am happy to see many of my friends. As Ruby said, I am the president of the Maryland Association of Education of Young Children. That is a volunteer position that I take as an advocate that I actually started when my son, who just graduated from high school, was in kindergarten, and he wasn't receiving what I knew as somebody who studied early childhood and child development, a quality education. And I'm still here advocating. I didn't start as president, but I started advocating for my children to really have a space where they were seen and where they had the resources and the support that they needed to reach their full potential, and it wasn't prescribed one size fits all. And so my youngest daughter, Leah, was diagnosed with autism during the pandemic. And just as Rachel sort of outlined, I can verify as a parent, and I am not your average parent. I'm an early childhood advocate. I'm well connected. I'm an educator myself. Teacher, educator, administrator, and now working in education leadership at UMBC. I couldn't find her the support that she needed, and it broke my heart because I knew that early intervention could change her trajectory. And so, of course, it was a pandemic, but many of the things that I suffered through are still happening to families now. I live in St. Mary's County. And I was looking at some of the reports from the work group on special education that really there's issues with expanding quality pre-K because there aren't providers in St. Mary's at level 5. And this has been a struggle. My whole parenting is finding quality for my children that we can afford in the area. So there are deserts across the state. St. Mary's isn't the only area that we know that parents don't have access. But when you add on top of that you're telling providers that your child isn't potty trained and that she has a developmental disability, you're almost afraid to say it because it's not as scary as it sounds because she was little, it was hard and we were turned away because she wasn't potty trained. We were told that they didn't have experience with children. And we know that what the laws are, we know what the policies are, but the fear and the response from the providers is valid that they didn't have the resources or the support, to provide care for her. And so that is a real reality that I think some of the other experts on this call can speak to. But what happened was here's another issue that arose is when she was identified, I brought her to Kennedy Krieger. She was diagnosed with autism. We went through infant toddler. In St. Mary's County, because of the zip code where I live, she was given 2.5 hours, 2 days a week. If I had lived in another county, she would have possibly been in an autism classroom with educators specializing in her disability and how to support her in this very critical time where she's developing language 5 days a week with some typical peers. But she wasn't with typical peers. It was 2.5 hours. It was in a separate wing of the building. Of course, it's infant toddler, so she's little. I wanted her to have support in the natural environment, but her daycare provider was in Prince George's County. That's where my mother lived, who was providing care for her. Because of the reciprocity of, I was told that her speech and language pathologist couldn't go to the provider because I lived in St. Mary's. So I had to find somewhere in St. Mary's, but there wasn't anywhere in St. Mary's. I worked in PG County. And so my mother, took care of her just over the line. We're not far. So these are, I believe, issues that are still happening that are going to be need to be addressed when you think about this mixed delivery, because you have people who work in certain areas but take their children to providers in different counties. And so what does that look like, and what does that coordination look like? That is going to be a very layered, intricate kind of process to figure that out. Also figuring out the funding streams of who's paying for that, which taxes are going to that. And so, but it's something that needs to be done if we're really going to meet the families, the reality of the families, because we are a very transient area here in the DMV. And so many of us don't have our children in centers or in childcare right next to our home. Many families prefer to have them close to their work in case of an emergency. When Leah got old enough to enter pre-K, St. Mary's offered her again a self-contained classroom. She actually was one of the highest functioning children because she had begun to talk. We decided to put her, we pulled her from the infant todd placement because we knew she needed quality, she needed typical peers, and she needed it consistently 5 days a week. And we did find a church-based childcare provider that had a Montessori-based program that was just a blessing to us. And they weren't a level 5, but they were quality. I know what quality looks like. I helped public school pre-K classrooms reach quality. That was my job. And so we were very lucky in that way that we found this spot, and they kept her. So we went that route because we were told by the county, and I think Rachel brought this up, that they were not going to give her a seat in the 4-year-old classroom because she wasn't tier 1. And it didn't matter. I said, my pushback was, well, it shouldn't matter how much my husband and I make. She has a disability. She needs to be in the typical pre-K classroom where her peers, she's thriving in this center with typical peers. They were a little younger than her, but she was doing well and she was picking up so much language from them. But they wouldn't do it. They put her in a different school, in a separate classroom, in a separate wing of the building, and we just decided to pay out of pocket to keep her in the pre-K program another year. And then she went to kindergarten last year, and I have been fighting for her to get an IEP all year, and they believe that she doesn't need it because she did make a lot of gains, but now the gaps are growing and she's struggling in 1st grade. And so while my insurance pays for 20 hours of ABA therapy a week, and my husband and I pay out of pocket for speech therapy because this is what Kennedy Krieger says she needs, the school system says she doesn't need it, that she's doing great. And so these are the realities of what families are. These two systems, it's really hard to navigate. And I think all of those are things to think about when you think about, we want to expand early childhood. What are the experiences of the families? What are the resources that are available in the public schools? And how can we kind of mirror that, but also improve it? Because really, public schools are missing the mark on some things as well. But I think as a parent, the hubs provide a really great opportunity for us to think about giving the same supports. There's a lot of wealth of knowledge of resources in our state. I mean, we have Kennedy Krieger here. People fly from all over the country. And so I think that there's a lot of potential for us to get this right. But as a parent, I'd like to say, like, just urge like the urgency, because it's a window of time where her development is open to learning all these things and providing her a strong foundation. And we need to get it right. And it can't take us 10 years because the window's closed and then the battle becomes even harder.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina. Thank you for sharing your parent perspective. Next, I want to introduce Chris Bush as our next speaker. She's the Executive Director of the Maryland State Child Care Association and an amazing advocate. Chris?
Thanks, Ruby. And thank you to my colleagues and thank you for this opportunity. I actually have a couple slides I wanted to share. I just wanted to, piggyback from my colleagues that were so eloquent and was able to share a different perspectives. This topic that we're on tonight. I would say, and since, the AIB was reflecting on House Bill 1441, I don't know if I can share or not, Ruby. It says host disabled participant. So I'm not sure if I can share.
And I think we have a hard stop at 5:30. So we have to just finish at 5:29.
Gotcha. So I would say that House Bill 1441 does include the hubs that both you mentioned early on, as this was quite a comprehensive bill that passed. And also it includes, the hubs should include what Rachel and Christina were talking about as a resource, because, the LEAs have a certain amount of resources, but the community-based providers at providing pre-K do not, and childcare, because we know parents don't work 6.5 hours a day, and we need wraparound services and the other parts of childcare that are needed for our working families or families that are going to school or in training programs. I think this is an important part of what the AIB is looking at as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my thing. So I wanted to share a couple things about the MOUs that I understand that part of House Bill 1441, which I would like to go back and also say thank you to the AIB, because we used your December 1st report that was, many people testified and provided feedback to you, and you were able to come up with an important report that we then based a lot of House Bill 1441, which I had sponsored, and my colleagues here, helped us get through both the House and the Senate side to make sure that it passed. So your reports and what you are hearing and doing is extremely important to policy and law that we are creating around the blueprint and how that impacts many other layers of childcare and early childhood career ladders, teachers and families. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I can share this. So I have one from Frederick County, it's an MOU, and then one from Howard County as well. It's gonna let me do it. I'm sorry, Ruby, I'm just making sure it's gonna let me do it, so I have to stop. Okay. And what I wanted to mention, a couple things that I think need to be addressed with regard to pre-K and the children with disabilities, because it's very clear, as Rachel said, in the blueprint and the expansion of pre-K that, sorry guys, I'm trying to find it here, that the that children with disabilities, children with English language learners that are native languages in English, and then of course homelessness, they are all very much priorities regarding pre-K, and we have to fund that. So you can say that it's a priority. You can say that you're going to do this, and I do agree that there has been some additional supports for infants and toddler programs, but it's certainly not enough to serve the children and families as they need to be served. And in the MOUs, it's very much spelled out and required that the LEA is to work with the private provider to provide these services, transitions to kindergarten services for whatever that specific disability is. And that is not happening. I know, Ruby, you are a provider, and Christina spoke to her experience, but you've also had the same experience where you're not getting these services in, and it should be in a community-based setting because you are a public pre-K. So our concern is that this, even though you're asking and you're mandating and you're recommending the mixed delivery, which is critical and necessary to have a mixed delivery system, because you will not be able to serve all 4-year-olds and eligible 3-year-olds without the childcare community stepping up and providing, the mixed delivery component of this, along with their partners in public school systems, that we're not looked at in an equitable way as part of the public school system. Another issue is concerning the teacher. For IEPs and IFSPs, you have a team that is assembled that works with these children, that has their parent, their teacher, the services they're receiving. And that team doesn't include a community-based provider automatically like it does a public pre-K teacher that is employed by the public school. But your MOU states that it should. And that's not happening either. They're not included unless a parent invites them, and it's incumbent upon the parent to make the invitation and the connection, then that's not being done as well. So they're not included, and they have a child a minimum of 6.5 hours. Many of them have them longer than that. So this is something that needs to be addressed in a stronger MOU template and a requirement, so that the parents and the school system, and we are part of that mixed delivery system, is equitable and respected. And I think that is something that should be looked at by the AIB as well, because you're talking the talk, but we're not walking the walk. Does that make sense? Because you're putting a lot of this in writing, in law, and in MOUs, but it's not being carried out that way. And so how do you, as an oversight entity, support that and make sure that it's not just on paper, that's actually happening? As Christina said, and that my colleagues were speaking about, we really have to look at all of those things. So I do have these. I'll send these to Ruby, because I did snapshots of each of the MOUs. And I can send you the MOUs themselves, but I think it's important that you actually look at the information. And I believe that MSDE has a report on this. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be as of July 1st of this year, that was looking into whether or not there was enough support and funding to serve these children with disabilities. And I have that report as well, that I think we need to really take what we have in place and be able to make recommendations that are strong. And now that we know that, our session is upcoming, and if there's anything that needs to be done, to make any changes or support the budget, or I know we had funding cuts for the IECMH, which is the Infant Early Childhood Mental Health. They just received budget cuts. So, these are things that are critical to these hubs. They're critical to success for children and families and readiness for kindergarten and beyond in life. But yet we're not doing what we say we know is our goal, is our shining North Star with our blueprint. So I just wanted to be sure that, sorry, I can't pull it up on my screen, but I will send you those things that I think is important to review as a committee.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Chris, for all the information that you brought in today. In regards to, maybe this is a question for the AIB, the Special Education and Implementation Work Group. Is there someone that's? Oh, okay. Now I see your. Now I see the slide. Is the private providers included in the implementation work group that they were working on, the MSDE, or is that something that the AIB should make a recommendation, or the Pillar One should make a recommendation that the private providers be part of this special education implementation work group?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but it's something we can definitely follow up with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Libby. I know we're wrapping up now, but we would like to say hello to Libby Diamond for joining the Pillar One.
Hi, everybody. I'm part of AIB and I joined late, and I'm sorry. It's a great conversation, and you'll see me monthly as well. Thank you for having us.
Okay, well, thank you. So, is there any feedback or comment from the Pillar One Advisory Committee? I know we have a hard stop soon, so just a couple of things maybe for Arsha to consider. Maybe the lack of awareness. I know, is it Chris Bush and Rachel, I guess, and Christina brought in the lack of awareness of the application for the CCS special needs disability that is about 15% increase rate. Maybe we can let the that's something that we can communicate to the public. This support on private pre-K, and also just a quick question to either Rachel or Rachel regarding the developmental delay. Does this include English as a second language as part of the developmental disability? Or no?
So there are a variety of different definitions, but for developmental delay and early intervention services, delay in speech can be over if it's a 25% more, or for whatever reason can be, it's possible. For our state and federal funding purposes, developmental disability is defined as a kind of words I don't like to use, but what is in the law, severe and chronic, that requires multiple layers of support in different ways. So it would not qualify in that realm, but it could qualify in early intervention, maybe.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no feedback or any other comments from the committee before we close the meeting? Oh, thank you so much for the guests, Rachel, Christina, the two Christinas, and the Pillar One Committee, and Libby, and Arsha, and Lisa, for a wonderful meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 3rd, but we move it a week because that is Rosh Hashanah. We move it to October the 10th, and it's at 4:30 p.m. Thank you so much. And Libby, do you want to close the meeting?
Thank you everyone for coming. As always, your information and feedback are so valuable. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
And
Thank
Ruby,
you,
I'll
everyone.
send you the slides if you wanted to share them. Thanks.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank you.